In the aftermath of Germany's defeat in World War I, a profound sense of humiliation and economic. Chapter 4. The Consolidation of Power. The Führer's Grip Tightens. Chapter 5. The Descent into Darkness, Crimes Against Humanity. Men, women and children were rounded up, deported, and exterminated in death camps. Chapter 6. Behind the Mask, the Man and the Monster. Who was the man behind the mask of the dictator? Chapter 7. The Downfall, the End of a Night. Chapter 8. The Legacy of Chapter 9. A Timeline of Terror, Key Dates and Facts. 1939. Germany invades Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. 1941. The Final Solution, the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews, is implemented. 1945. Hitler commits suicide in Berlin as Allied forces close in. Adolf Hitler. A name etched in the annals of history, synonymous with power, ideology, and unimaginable destruction. His reign over Nazi Germany remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, leaving an indelible mark on the world. From his humble beginnings in Austria to his meteoric rise as the Führer of the Third Reich, Hitler's life is a cautionary tale of ambition, hatred, and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. Join us now as we embark on a journey through time, tracing the footsteps of this complex and deeply unsettling figure. This is not an attempt to glorify but to understand, to learn, and to ensure that such darkness never again engulfs our world. Our story begins in the quiet Austrian town of Braunau am Inn, where a seemingly ordinary boy named Adolf Hitler was born in 1889. His childhood, however, was far from idyllic. Marked by a strict father and the loss of several siblings, young Adolf's early years were steeped in both rigidity and sorrow. Even in his youth, seeds of resentment and a yearning for grandeur began to take root. His academic performance was unremarkable, his artistic aspirations frustrated. A sense of displacement, of not quite belonging, clung to him. Little did anyone know that this seemingly unremarkable boy from Braunau would one day hold the fate of nations in his hands. Drawn to the grandeur and turmoil of Vienna, the young Hitler sought solace and purpose in the bustling metropolis. The city, with its rich cultural heritage and vibrant social life, was a magnet for many aspiring artists and thinkers. However, for Hitler, it was more than just a place to live. It was a crucible where his early ideas and ambitions began to take shape. It was here, amidst the artistic and political ferment of the early 20th century, that his worldview began to solidify. The cafes buzzed with intellectual debates, the art scene was thriving, and political rallies were a common sight. These elements combined to create an environment ripe for the formation of radical ideas. Exposed to virulent nationalism, anti-Semitism, and a yearning for a bygone era of imperial glory, Hitler found fertile ground for his burgeoning resentments. The nationalist rallies he attended were filled with fervent speeches that stoked his anger and frustration. Anti-Semitic propaganda was widespread, further fueling his prejudices. The imagery of a once mighty empire in decline resonated deeply with him, reinforcing his desire to restore what he saw as lost greatness. The outbreak of World War I offered him a chance to escape the drudgery of his existence. The war was seen by many as an opportunity for adventure and heroism, and Hitler was no exception. He eagerly enlisted, hoping to find a sense of purpose and belonging that had eluded him in civilian life. He embraced military life with fervor, serving as a dispatch runner on the Western Front. The camaraderie of the trenches, the thrill of battle, and the discipline of military life appealed to him. He was awarded several medals for bravery, which only strengthened his belief in his own destiny. The horrors of war, the sting of defeat, and the perceived betrayal by politicians and profiteers left an indelible mark on his psyche. The devastation he witnessed and the loss of comrades deeply affected him. The armistice and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles felt like a personal betrayal, a humiliation that he believed was orchestrated by corrupt politicians and greedy profiteers. The seeds of his twisted ideology were sown. The post-war discontent in Germany provided a fertile ground for his radical ideas. He began to articulate a vision of a new Germany, one that would rise from the ashes of defeat and reclaim its former glory. His speeches, filled with vitriol and promises of renewal, began to attract a following, setting the stage for his eventual rise to power. In the aftermath of Germany's defeat in World War I, a profound sense of humiliation and economic despair gripped the nation. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed harsh reparations, leading to widespread poverty and unemployment. German soldiers returned home to a country in turmoil, where inflation soared and basic necessities became luxuries. The Weimar Republic, struggling to maintain stability, faced constant political and social unrest. It was in this cauldron of resentment and disillusionment that the Nazi Party, initially a fringe group, began to gain traction. They peddled a toxic brew of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and promises of national revival. Their propaganda resonated with a populace desperate for change, offering simple solutions to complex problems. The early Nazi gatherings, though small, were fervent and filled with a sense of purpose. Adolf Hitler, with his fiery oratory and uncanny ability to tap into the anxieties and fears of the masses, quickly rose through the ranks of the Nazi Party. His speeches, filled with vitriol and grandiose visions of a restored Germany, captivated audiences. He portrayed himself as the savior of the nation, the one who could lead Germany out of its current misery and back to greatness. The failed beer hall putsch of 1923, though a significant setback, provided Hitler with a national stage. The attempted coup, aimed at overthrowing the Weimar government, ended in failure and imprisonment for Hitler. However, it was during his time in prison that he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his ideology and future plans. This period also honed his skills as a master propagandist, allowing him to refine his message and strategy. Through cunning manipulation, political maneuvering, and the exploitation of democratic processes, Hitler and the Nazi Party tightened their grip on the levers of power. They formed strategic alliances, used propaganda to sway public opinion, and capitalized on the weaknesses of their opponents. By infiltrating the political system, they gradually eroded democratic institutions from within. By 1933, the unthinkable had happened. Adolf Hitler, the once marginalized agitator, had become Chancellor of Germany. His appointment marked the beginning of a dark chapter in history, as the Nazi regime swiftly moved to consolidate power, suppress dissent, and implement their radical agenda. The rise of Hitler from the beer hall to the Reichstag was a testament to the dangerous allure of extremist ideologies in times of crisis. Chapter 4. The Consolidation of Power. The Führer's grip tightens. With chilling efficiency, Hitler and his cohorts dismantled the fragile remnants of German democracy. The Enabling Act, passed under a cloud of intimidation and fear, granted Hitler dictatorial powers. Political opponents were silenced, imprisoned, or murdered. The press was muzzled, freedom of speech extinguished. Germany, under the iron fist of the Nazi regime, was transformed into a totalitarian state. Propaganda permeated every aspect of life, glorifying Hitler as the infallible Führer, the savior of the German people. The stage was set for the horrors that were to follow. Chapter 5. The Descent into Darkness, Crimes Against Humanity. Fueled by a toxic ideology rooted in racial hatred and a lust for domination, Hitler's Germany embarked on a path of unimaginable cruelty and destruction. The Nazi regime, under the guise of restoring national pride and economic stability, manipulated the fears and prejudices of the populace, leading them down a dark road of hatred and violence. The Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of their citizenship, reducing them to second-class status. These laws were a calculated move to isolate and dehumanize the Jewish community, setting the stage for even more brutal measures. Jews were banned from marrying or having sexual relations with persons of German or related blood, further entrenching their segregation. Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, witnessed a terrifying wave of violence against Jewish businesses and synagogues. On November 9 and 10, 1938, Nazi paramilitary forces and civilians alike unleashed a coordinated attack, destroying thousands of Jewish-owned stores, homes, and places of worship. This event marked a significant escalation in the Nazi campaign against the Jews. The invasion of Poland in 1939 plunged the world into another global conflict, a conflict that would claim the lives of tens of millions. This aggressive expansion was justified by the Nazis as a quest for Lebensraum, or living space, but in reality, it was a brutal campaign of conquest and subjugation. But it was the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, that stands as the most horrific testament to the depravity of Hitler's regime. This genocide was meticulously planned and executed with the aim of eradicating the Jewish people from Europe. The Nazis employed a range of methods, from mass shootings to gas chambers, in their relentless pursuit of this goal. Men, women, and children were rounded up, deported, and exterminated in death camps, their only crime, their religion. The survivors of these camps bore witness to unimaginable horrors, and their testimonies serve as a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty. The Holocaust remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, a chilling example of what can happen when hatred and intolerance are allowed to flourish unchecked. Chapter 6. Behind the Mask, the Man and the Monster. Who was the man behind the mask of the dictator? Hitler's personal life remains shrouded in a mix of fact and speculation. His relationship with Eva Braun, his longtime mistress whom he married in the final hours of his life, offers a glimpse into his private world. A strict vegetarian, teetotaler, and reportedly fond of animals, Hitler's personal habits stand in stark contrast to the brutality of his regime. But these contradictions only serve to highlight the chilling reality. Evil often wears a human face. Chapter 7. The Downfall, the End of a Nightmare. As the tide of war turned against Germany, Hitler's grip on power began to weaken. His armies, once invincible, faced defeat on multiple fronts. Allied forces closed in on Berlin, determined to crush the Nazi regime once and for all. Inside the Führer bunker, Hitler's health deteriorated, both physically and mentally. The man who had once envisioned himself as the master of Europe was now a broken and defeated figure. On April 30, 1945, as Soviet troops stormed the heart of Berlin, Adolf Hitler took his own life, bringing his reign of terror to an end. Chapter 8. The Legacy of Hate, Never Forget. The world emerged from the shadow of World War II, shattered, scarred by the horrors inflicted by Hitler and his Nazi regime. The Holocaust, the systematic extermination of 6 million Jews, stands as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. The legacy of Hitler's ideology continues to cast a long shadow, a stark warning against the dangers of intolerance, hatred, and unchecked power. It is our duty to remember, to learn from the past, and to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. Chapter 9. A Timeline of Terror, Key Dates and Facts, 1889. Adolf Hitler is born in Braunau am Inn, Austria, 1914. Hitler enlists in the German army, serving in World War I, 1923. The Beer Hall Putsch, a failed attempt to seize power in Munich, 1933. Hitler is appointed Chancellor of Germany, 1939. Germany invades Poland, marking the beginning of World War II, 1941. The final solution, the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews, is implemented, 1945. Hitler commits suicide in Berlin as Allied forces close in. And so we come to the end of our journey, a journey through the life and times of one of history's most notorious figures. Adolf Hitler's rise and fall serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace, the seductive power of hatred, and the enduring importance of vigilance in the face of tyranny. May we never forget the lessons of the past, and may we strive to create a world where the horrors of Hitler's reign are never repeated.